America and what you find in the Appalachian Mountains, there's a group of people that they identified as Melungeons. These Melungeons came over here through the Spanish Inquisition, wound up in the Appalachian Mountains.
Now, when you say came over through the Spanish Inquisition, they were escaping from?
They were escaping from. Some
Yes.
was escaping from, but some came over as captives to the Spaniards.
Okay.
Over here in this island, this first group, when they found up in St. Helena's Island, then they got pushed inland in what you call Tennessee, West Virginia, and Kentucky. Some of the famous people that they call, say, were Melungeons, they say that Elvis Presley's mother was a Melungeon. They say that Abraham Lincoln's mother was a Melungeon. There's a group.
So that means that they were Melungeons, they have some Islamic roots.
Yes, yes. There's a book that was done that done by the United States government, annual report to Smithsonian, that went around interviewing and investigating what they called indigenous people they found in America. And one of the groups that they found was these Melungeons, the Arabs up in New York. They found the Moors of Delaware, and we'll go into there. The Moors of Delaware is another group. There's a group of Moors that are reported coming over here in the late 1600s. There's 3 different stories about these Moors. One story was an Irish woman that married some Moors and then they had children that stayed. Another story states that there was a group of Moors that got shipwrecked, came up inland, and they married amongst Navajo Indians. Then there was another story states that there was another Irish woman who married, that got banished from Spain. And a group of those Moors got trapped and shipwrecked, and they wound up in the Delaware area.
Right.
But these Moors married what they call the Navajo Indians. They lived in the southern part of New Jersey, Bridgeton, New Jersey, and in the outskirts of Dover, Delaware. They still live there today.
But let me ask you here, it is kind of fascinating how you travel through the country and you find a lot of cities that have Islamic names, but now you find that there's some connection to why these names are there.
Yes. Yes, I'm real humble, and I don't want to jump too far. You know, on my last research I've done, I'm really now these people we're talking are more East Coast, and you can see through the waterway current. But then there's another group of people, and then these people came with the Spaniards. They came through Florida, so you see them through the Gulf area. But then there's a group of people that are that they call the Ben Ishmael tribe. They're found in what you call the Midwest area. We'll talk about them a little later.
We'll just talk about some of these names you found.
Now, some of the names, the towns that we found and we visited. We'll talk a little bit later about Mecca, Indiana, Muhammad, Illinois. I visited that town. There's a Muhammad, Texas. The Medina, Ohio, Medina, Texas, Toledo. There's towns all around the United States that are made up of people, like we just got finished doing research. Also finding about some of the early people from Africa, Nigeria, no, not Nigeria, but Algiers, Morocco, Arabia, Turkey, that came over here in the 1850s, that we found them in the census, 1860 census, 1870 census.
Okay.
But we'll talk a little bit later on. Stay within the year time, it works a little bit easier.
Okay.
Here's a plaque that shows the listing of some of the last names that the Moors of Delaware have. So you see some of the family last names. You still see Dean, Carney, Hansor, Simmons. These are some of the names. And the Navajo Indians, where they married amongst, your Melungeons. You talk about the Guineas of West Virginia. These are some of the names. And
so you find if you're from this place in West Virginia and
got
this is your last name, you might have Moorish or Melungeon background.
That's right. That's right. And these are different articles that we found, different newspaper articles talking about these people. It's well clear. We're just not aware of it. Then the next wave is the wave what they call the African diaspora. These are Muslims that are brought over here from West Africa that was enslaved. A lot of times people say that these Africans wasn't educated. They couldn't read, write, had no culture, but that's not true. This map shows you the growth of Islam in Africa, from the 7th century to the 8th century. Then it going up into the, what we call Spain. Then it comes down into the sub-Saharan Africa. So you find that Islam had deep roots in there. These are some of the personalities, how they was dressed in there. These are some of the tribes, the Muslim tribes that they brought over here. The Moors, the Tangerines, the Seris, the Wolf, the Mandingos, the Hausans, and we found some Fulanis and some Yorubas. These are some of the early Africans, young boys, you can see them in chains that were brought over here. Then on the next panel we try to show the people is the more inner line of the growth, because they told us that the Africans couldn't read and write, and we showed that they can. As we go further, we'll show some early Arabic writings that was found in America from these Africans that they say couldn't read. This is a map show you some of the interior areas where they brought them from. East of Futu Jalo, Futu Toro, Mali, different parts that they brought them in. This map shows you the areas where they came, where the known Muslims wound up living. This is the map to show them how they treated people, bring them over here into this condition to get them out of their roots, their natural history. Then here we show, this is the first Hafiz, the first known Muslim scholar arriving in America. He arrived in Annapolis, Maryland, about 50 miles from here. It's reported that he wrote the Quran 3 times down from memory. This is a book, magazine that was done in 1750. Called the Gentleman's Magazine, or the early prerequisite of the Gentleman or GQ magazine. This article talking about Joe Ibn Dijalo, Solomon, and his uniqueness and his character, and he was known for praying and fasting. This is a book that was done also about his life in 1734. This is when the Western world first learned about the interior of Africa was from Joe Ibn Dijalo. When he made it back to freedom, he went to England. The Queen of England brought him gold watches and everything. They was amazed and marveled at his character and his dignity. You see what carrying his Quran and an amulet around him. His name is Joe Ibn Dijalo. Another person that we found amongst the Native American Indians. This is the last of the Mohegans. This is Uncas, what could be Eunice. Story states that in all their tombstones, they're faced towards the east. Story states that Uncas had 3 sons. One of the sons' name was Muhammad. That Muhammad had a son. And Muhammad supposed to became the next leader of the Mohegan Indians, but he was robbed from his birthright. He wound up going to England in 1700s, and he died in 1735. Cub Scout troop put this plaque up for him in 1929, honoring this Muhammad, because he's supposed to become the next leader. And he still exists there, and this is up in New England area. Then we also find Muslims writing a letter. This is one of the earliest letters we've known. This is the Al-Fatiha, and 4 of the last surahs of the Holy Quran, which was written in 1768 from a Muslim in Anderson, South Carolina. The slave master and the owners did not do the translation until 90 years later, 1858, before they knew what he was saying and reading. And this is the translation, which is a real good translation of the different ayats that they recorded. Then we also found Muslim runaway slave advertisements. These are runaway slave advertisements. This is one looking for a brother named Mustafa. Mustafa had a scheme going on with him and his slave master, is that he would get sold to one slave plantation, then run away and escape. Him and his slave master goes to another plantation, sell him and run away and escape. This is a story talking about that runaway, and they wind up going to Richmond, Virginia. His name was Mustafa. This one is looking yellowish complexion of the Moorish breed, saying that's coming from a Moorish country. Here's one looking for 2 Sambos. In many West African countries, they named their second son Samba, meaning the second son. So this is why you find a lot of Sambos here. And they call from the Moorish country, a Moorish breed. There's another one looking for a Kawami. There's another one looking for a Muhammad. This was done in 1774.
Right.
Now, one of the most famous Muslim or famous African personality that we're aware of through the African diaspora is Kunta Kinte. What people are not aware of, Kunta Kinte was a Muslim. You go back and read the first 26 chapters of the book, you see him talking about his fasting, his friend Ramadan, Rashid, praying. You see his Islamic character, his Islamic community. His father's name was Omaro, his mother's name was Benta. And we went to Alexandria Museum, and we found this is the actual Chicken George hanging up in the museum. And you see him in a throw. They thought he was in his pajamas. But why would somebody take a picture in the pajamas and then carry a pipe? So you know he thought he was dressed. But this is the actual Chicken George in the throw. In the area where he's buried, we found tombstones with the 1 finger on it. I will talk about that a little later. And this is a plaque that they put up down in Kunta Kinte, arrival in